Start us off, Carter, for the last time this season.
And welcome back to your new favorite show, Catchphrases Weekly. I am Carter,
I'm Kevin.
and we will be spending the NFL offseason talking about our favorite catchphrases from Gotta Go Fast to It's Clobbering Time, or one of my personal favorites, Yippee Skippity Boop Bop Boop. But actually, it's Carter and Kevin Explain Football. I'm Carter.
I'm Kevin and still sad.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, after 20 ish, I probably should have double checked how many weeks the football season is before I said it. After months, since July, over half a year of blood, sweat, and tears, we finally get to the grand finale. We get to the pinnacle that every kid in his backyard throwing a football around dreams of, that every college player says, man, they look up at the stars at night and say, man, if only. The thing we lose sleep over, the thing we smash TVs over, the thing we lose an unreasonable amount of betting money over. Ladies and gentlemen, the Super Bowl finally happened. And boy, for like 90 minutes of it, it flippin' sucked.
Oh my gosh. I wasn't even actively watching for like the first up until fourth quarter probably.
Yes, I'm going to be perfect. I texted the group. I think my exact words were, imagine being on one of these teams and all week you're just hearing, oh, what a terrible Super Bowl. The worst two got in. And instead of thinking, you know what, we're going to prove them wrong and have a fireworks show, a true razzmatazz affair. No, you proved them right for a huge chunk of the game, actually. Yep. I straight up went and showered through Usher's halftime show, and I was this close to finally declaring. You know what? Let's all just play Discord games or something. Yeah. And then one muffed punt later turns it into a game.
Yeah, it's so good yet so sad how like bad this game was. First off, it was a great showing from the field goal committee. Like, shout out to special teams for holding their own. And then you get to the half, and there was only one touchdown scored, of course by Christian McCaffrey, that entire time. And It's like, all right, whatever, 10-3 at half. It's not even out at like no one's guaranteed game yet. And it's just like, do I want to sit through another X amount of time of this? And then you consider and go, maybe I'm just too lazy to turn it off. And that's how it was for me.
And some football is better than no football, and we're getting close to not having football for a very long time.
Yeah. I will say, like, people are talking about how this was a very strong defensive battle. The answer is yes, it was a very strong defensive battle, but the offenses looked terrible.
Yes. Well, here's my thing. This reminds me of, so like my big ex grew up in Massachusetts, and her dad was obviously a Patriots fan. And he was trying to justify that Rams-Steelers Super Bowl as like, well, isn't there something great about a defensive battle? It's like, objectively, yes, but unless there's a lot of like a fun defensive battle was that like 55-50 Rams Chiefs game, where even though it's high scoring, we're still getting huge plays like sacks, forced fumbles, safeties, interceptions. Whereas this is just like, no, it really is just a really good scheme and top tier cornerbacks versus a very good defensive line causing the Patrick Mahomes magic not to work.
Yeah.
A lot of people got on the 49ers case for not running the ball, which this isn't like the Ravens game. No. I mean, McCaffrey still got 22 carries. Truly, I think I went back and watched some highlights to be prepared for this. Truly, every other play they had 5 guys on the line. They truly were just like, please try to pass. That is we are not going to let him run around.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like, if you look at his stats, he ran for a total of 160 yards and a touchdown.
80 yards, not including 80 receiving.
80 receiving, 80.
So 80 burger.
Yeah, so you can't really argue that Christian McCaffrey wasn't doing anything through that time. It's just he went 80 yards in 22 carries for an average of 3 yards. So they clearly noticed he was getting stopped.
Right. They didn't. The Chiefs truly didn't give them a choice and said, at the end of the day, I know your receiving core is scary, but we have two of the best cornerbacks in the league and one of the most dangerous, disruptive pass rushers, and we're just going to trust that, Brock Purdy is going to make just enough mistakes that it makes us look really smart. Yeah. And on the other end, it really just was this weird. It was so weird watching how discombobulated the Chiefs' offense was for the first half. And I guess, by extension, it really is like just it is just an extension of how they were all year, where it's like the usual magic and like rabbit out of your hat stuff they always do just didn't work.
Yeah.
A play that sticks in my head is the one where Patrick Mahomes, it's like close to the goal line. Patrick Mahomes is looking to do like a jump pass, realizes literally no one's open, and is forced to just come back down just in time to get smushed by Bosa. The 49ers defensive line, after looking really, really rough for a huge chunk of this playoffs, like truly, they almost caught, there's a very real chance the 49ers don't even get to this game because of the defense. They shelled out for this game at the very least.
Yeah, they were. Sorry, I was changing tabs and stuff. Both defenses clearly like showed up and put each other's like quarterbacks in place. Like,
right.
I think that was the difference between this Super Bowl and last Super Bowl, because all teams in last Super Bowl and the Super Bowl had very strong defenses. But last year's Super Bowl also had very strong offenses. And I'm not saying that just because it was the Eagles or it was like a higher scoring game. But if you looked at how the offenses
two of the best
played,
offenses of the year.
Yeah. Like all season to that point, and then so it's like if you see that plus the factor of them like just how they ran around and stuff and had a lot more passing yards and stuff, it was like it had more big play vibes, if that makes sense. As opposed to this one. This one didn't feel like there was too many big plays. Outside of the getting a record-breaking Super Bowl record 55-yard field goal, only for the Chiefs to return with a 57. Like,
actually hilarious.
Hilarious, but outside of that, the longest touchdown pass was 21 yards.
A truly comical end reverse. Juan Jennings, who really looked like he was going to be the Super Bowl MVP for a minute, just flops it. Like it wasn't really a throw; it was more of an arm punt. I've never seen a ball in the air that long that didn't get intercepted or result in the wide receiver getting a horrific head injury.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's so funny because in so many ways this game just kind of became it was just the discourse we've had all year, where it's like, this prickly nature of like somehow we've turned the ultimate team sport into a discourse about quarterbacks, and like defenses have finally shut down the big play, so people are forced to dink and dunk. And it's like both of those things were true, where it's like, okay, these defenses aren't going to blow this. It's going to come down, and of course, it's going to come down to whose quarterback can make just enough spectacular, in the absence of run games.
Yeah.
Which quarterback is going to make just enough spectacular plays to pull it off. And to Patrick Mahomes' credit, it's like, yeah, this is what he does. It is the classic Patrick Mahomes thing of if you keep it within 8 to 10 points, he will somehow find a way.
He finds a way to win. He absolutely does.
And it's been talked about a lot. The muffed punt. It was like, it really looked like the Chiefs were dead to rights. Their first 3 drives were a truly horrific interception, like a truly uncharacteristic. They punted again on 3 and out. They got a field goal. They were forced to punt again on 3 and out, and it's like, God, that might be the backbreaker. Only to have a muffed punt. They score a touchdown the next play, and it's like, oh, Kansas City's going to win. It doesn't matter what happens for the rest of this game. It just feels like they're going to win. And, like, again, another big difference is, like, Patrick Mahomes led the team, was second in rushing between both teams. And it's just like, yeah, he could call his number and went for it.
Yeah.
Whereas Brock Purdy, he could do that. He just didn't. I don't even think Brock Purdy played that badly. He wasn't great. But at the end of the day, Like, he was getting chased around. He did exactly what he's done all year, do just enough. But he doesn't have that gear that, like, the elite quarterbacks have.
Yeah. And it's like one of those things where it's just like, I feel like these two teams were built complete opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Kansas City Chiefs are clearly the Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce show. Everybody else happens to be there, although great showing from people like Isaiah Pacheco. It's like that's kind of the show, and then the rest of the team more or less falls around them. On the inverse side, the 49ers feels like it is just like, all right, we needed somebody that can throw a ball because we got Christian McCaffrey, we got George Kittle. I'm not a big fan of Deebo Samuel and Kyle Juszczyk, but can't deny they're good.
Wait, why don't you like Kyle Juszczyk? He seems like a quintessential Kevin player.
He is. Here's the problem. His name, incredibly difficult to spell. So I don't like to bring that up. I don't like to bring him up that much because it's like, we'll talk about players we like and we'll text back and forth and stuff. And I don't have the effort in me to do that. You know?
Right. Banner year for Polish athletes in the Super Bowl. I'll give them that.
But yeah, like, so it feels like the whole, like, and everyone's like, the Mr. Irrelevant storyline and stuff. It's like, yeah, that's the title that everyone's been given. It's just that Brock Purdy's the first in a while to really make a name with it.
I do love Danny's discourse about, like, if they want Josh Allen to be the face of the league because he's white. And I'm like, no, all that energy, that's Brock Purdy. Because, again, like I talked about this before, it's like Brock Purdy is a perfectly serviceable NFL quarterback. He has proved that now. He will have a comfortable career being, like, diet Kirk Cousins. He will do just enough to get your team's wins, just like Dak Prescott does enough. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why they didn't get drafted in the first 2 rounds. Yeah. Because, again, the guys in the first 2 rounds just have that extra unique physical trait, that, like, diamond in the rough, that if it can get molded, will work out. It's like, yeah, Josh Allen was a risk, but at the end of the day, he can throw a ball 80 yards and is built like a goddamn refrigerator.
Yeah.
Like, it's like there was, as long as someone could get him to fix his mechanics, it was going to be amazing. Like, I know Justin Fields doesn't look like the greatest pick right now, but when you can run that fast, that is an elite physical trait that you can't risk slipping.
He is an incredibly quick quarterback that, like you said, you need, that's one of those, you need the right coaches as opposed to the right. Like, players.
And again, that's Patrick Mahomes, because people doubted Patrick Mahomes coming out of the draft because an air raid quarterback had never really done it. But again, you see that elasticy arm and that ability to run around and that incredible vision, and you're just like, these are rare physical tools that deserve to be in the first round. And, like, if the right team gets those tools, he'll be a great quarterback. And that's what we saw again today. And, like, I don't know. A lot of people are, like, wringing their hands because it's like, this was the year to beat the Chiefs. How did we let this happen? And I'm just going to say, like, I'm utterly impressed by kind of the con game they were able to pull this year in terms of, like, convincing everyone that this was some horrific, terrible team. Like, that this was the worst team. It's the exact same team. No, I'd argue it's better. Because at the end of the day, the offense is basically the same, except they had to start bench. They healthy scratch Kadarius Toney because he's, like, his chaos ratio has now gone too chaotic. The defense is even better than it was before.
Oh, absolutely.
It is a top 5 defense. It is analytically one of the best defenses we've seen in a long time. Like, but we convinced ourselves that they sucked because they weren't sexy, that they weren't fun. This wasn't like Patrick chucking it 50 yards off his back foot offense. And yet, even though it's basically the same team that won the goddamn Super Bowl last year, it's somehow, like,
it's
incredibly worse.
Yeah. It's such a, like, for lack of a better word, a mind fuck about how it exists.
How perception is, yes.
They can be so good, but they can also be terrible, but they're super different, but they're not the same team as last year, but they're the same team.
Right. I mean, truly, if Kadarius Toney could have just been a normal person in that opening game and not deflected a pass to the other team and dropped a third down, like, if he didn't actively cost the Chiefs about 14 points, the narrative would have been completely different. But that starts the narrative, oh, Pat has no help. And I'm like, it's the same wide receiver core. It's just when you build your team around like a B minus C plus receiving core, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's the same thing with the Eagles when Nick Foles won the Super Bowl. Yeah. Like, once that thing fell apart, you go, with the benefit of hindsight, building a receiving core around Alshon Jeffrey and Nelson Aguilar probably wasn't the smartest idea, huh?
Yeah, it's one of that team was just the weird dream team, like Miracle on Ice, little Giants band of rapscallions.
Right. The only thing those two teams have in common is the like hot and cold wide receiving core. It's like everything else is like perfectly built on the Chiefs. Yeah. And like, it's kind of it truly, because it's so funny. Someone made the comment, it's like, if that one Jets safety didn't play that game and intercept 3 Josh Allen passes, he probably would have been MVP. It's like the week 1 narratives were just so skewed to the reality of this season. It's just so funny.
No, it skews so fast. Like, because it happens. It sets the tone for the entire season, that initial week.
Yeah.
And
they still won their division. They still probably, I'm going to be honest, if Kadarius Toney didn't have his stupid foot on the line against the Bills, they would have been the 2nd seed. Everything would have been fine in Chiefs land. Yeah. But we somehow got ourselves into knots where it's like, God, this team is so terrible. Yeah. Oh!
No, I feel like that's a good way to summarize this season is the overcomplication of making teams seem worse than they are. Now, I get it.
Everyone wants to be the underdog.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Is everyone wants to try and make themselves seem like the underdog, and then there's some situations where it's just like the Eagles keep talking about how they suck, and then they lose so many of their final games of the season that it's like, all right, yeah, maybe these guys do suck, but it's like.
Yeah, well, that was a special case. That will take study during the off season.
Yeah, it will. I'm gonna be hyper focused on that for when we bring back for maybe next season. But it's just like you look at I think the example we gave all season was the Dallas Cowboys, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. All had very similar records the majority of the season, and you look at all 3 teams as. You look at Dallas Cowboys as it's like, oh, they're hot. It's their year. And then you look at the Chiefs, it's like they're washed. That post-Super Bowl slump just hit them hard. And then Jacksonville, when they were leading, they were at least tied for the division and, if not the division, the conference for, I don't know, what would you say? 9/10 of the year? 90%?
Right.
Yeah, so it's like that's kind of what you're expected. Like the perspectives are. And then it's like, the Browns, they're here. Nick Chubb gets hurt.
Historic defense, and then it kind of falls off.
Nick Chubb gets hurt.
Yeah.
We're out.
I don't know.
Joe Flacco's in.
This season,
it's like, hey.
This season has really motivated me to I don't know, not lock into narratives so easily. Because at the end of the day, it's like 2 things can be, I don't know. Because at the end of the day, it's like, maybe it's just me being like, why did anyone bet against Patrick Mahomes? Of course this was going to work out. But it's like, but locking into that narrative would have been wrong too, because it would have ignored that, like, hey, at the end of the day, if a foot didn't bounce off a 49ers foot, and if the Ravens didn't fumble a ball into the end zone, maybe this story would have been different.
Yeah. But alas.
What else can we say about? I mean, obviously, in terms of legacies, now Patrick Mahomes has won 3 Super Bowls before he's 30. Andy Reid is adding himself to the Mount Rushmore of coaches.
Absolutely.
Travis Kelce continues to grow as an international celebrity. God, I really thought they were going to try and get him that last touchdown, and if he did, I think he would have won Super Bowl MVP.
Oh, absolutely. I thought they were going to force him a touchdown too, and then
right. Because it's like, it felt inevitable, right? Because like once you get into the red zone, it's like, what's going to happen here? Pat throws an interception. That's not going to happen.
No, Pat's going to throw it to Travis, and then everything's going to be fine.
Right. And yeah, I did. It is so funny how like the legacy of winning changes everything, because like if they lost, we'd be making such a bigger deal out of Travis Kelce kind of losing his mind
Yeah.
in the first quarter. And like I know the first quarter went really badly, but it's like, dude, again, it's like, why are you getting so tilted so fast?
Yeah. Also the factor of like the amount of narratives based from that one moment, and it's like I get it, like tensions are high, but if you watch him, like he clearly bumped into Andy Reid a lot harder and more aggressive than he was expecting. He was still expecting to yell at him, and
right.
I feel like that's a good sense of accountability for a coach to be able to handle getting yelled at by their players.
Right.
But
like, again, you can like in terms of
that, and it's
but at the same time, it's like, oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, but it's like if he raised his hand at him, or like it wasn't like a gut shove, it was like he took his hand and pushed him, and like made contact with even like an open hand. I would be like, if it was that, it's like you gotta either pull him from the game or fine him heavily afterwards. Like if you still want to play him, but it's like they're kind of. It's one of those, they're having a moment themselves. It just happens to be on camera. If they are both chill with it after the fact, they're both chill with it after the fact. Like, let them solve their problems like adults. If it's not that, I guess, it can be aggressive, but it can't be physical.
Yeah. I guess I'm just a salty little cracker because, like, after an entire year, we're going on year 2 of the Stefon Diggs discourse, mostly just because he yelled at Josh from a distance as he was getting talked to by the quarterback's coach.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, imagine if he did something like that. Imagine if he like shoved Shawnee, got a hand it to him, McDermott.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then on the other end of the spectrum, it's like Kyle Shanahan unfortunately now has 3 Super Bowls where he had a 10-point lead and somehow lost it. Like, look, at the end of the day, the only one I'm really holding against him is the Falcons one. Like, losing to Patrick Mahomes twice in a Super Bowl, isn't that shameful? Like,
no.
You know, plenty of teams lost to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. Like, the only one that was unacceptable was when he was the offensive coordinator for the Falcons. If you want to talk about a game where he absolutely should have been running the ball more, that game. Because when you have a 19-point lead, you're not playing the Patriots. You're playing the clock. And you basically just played yourselves. But, yeah, and like the opposite spectrum of, like, winning fixes and changes everything. Already the tension of, like, this team has been together for 3-ish years now, not including their first Super Bowl appearance. And it's like, they're going to have to go through all of this again for a chance to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And, like, Brandon Ayuk's brother's getting testy, and, like, there's tensions running high. It's like, it really is insane how much, like, one win or one loss completely upends teams.
Yeah, and you know what they did? They fired the defensive coordinator. Or mutually parted ways, I think, is the more formal term that was used. But
as long as there's someone to throw into the trolley car. And, like, come on, the defense played well in that game. They held them to, like, 19 points. How many? They held them to, like, 22 total. Points.
Yeah. No. Yeah, the Chiefs scored 25 points total. That's, like, I'd be surprised if he wasn't getting offers from other teams, because that's a solid... That is a solid showing from their defense.
Also, like, look, at the end of the day, Super Bowl loss, emotions running high. That's a real dick move to do to a guy after basically every other team settles their sort of situation.
Yeah, because it's
like
no one's
at
really
the 11th hour
more.
Right.
And
like, I don't know. I don't even. What coordinator positions are even open? Like,
it's like the exact opposite of the whole Jonathan Gannon situation, where it seems like he was offered very early.
Mm-hmm.
And he not really threw the game for it, but he got a lot of heat because he seemed off focus because he was getting interviews and stuff in the meantime.
Yeah, I don't know. And again, I'm not an Eagles fan, so I feel like I have a different perspective. I like the Eagles, but obviously I'm a Bills fan. Yeah. Like, I just think the system's broken where it's like, you should have to wait till after the Super Bowl to do any interviews. Like, it's unreasonable to expect guys having, like, a once-in-a-lifetime chance to simultaneously be juggling the chance to win a Super Bowl with, like, hey, there are 32 of the most prestigious jobs in the world. I need to get one of these.
Yeah, allegedly your top job, like the job possibly ideally want, and then the opportunity's there, but you're also focusing on the biggest game of your career, and that's a lot at once.
Right. Anything else you want to talk? We ended up talking about the Super Bowl longer than I thought we would. We could talk about SpongeBob.
Yeah, I watched a highlight reel of the SpongeBob overlays.
Fantastic. Man, when Tom Kenny goes off script, that man is a menace.
It was
holy
fantastic.
Crap. Some Paramount executive was ripping his hair out as he's making Leonardo DiCaprio jokes.
Yeah.
I thought the Dora stuff, like, again, they do a good job explaining the game. I really give them credit for that.
Explaining, like, penalties and terms and stuff in the middle of the game. Great concept.
Right.
I could have done without some of the slime overlays and stuff like that they did. Right. But, like, Patrick and SpongeBob commentary. Dora explaining rules very well, too.
Yes.
She roasted a guy, too.
I loved how merciless they were.
Yeah. He needs a map to find the end zone.
Yeah. He needs a map to find the end zone. That was one of the
It really is.
Lines.
On one hand, I am kind of like, who's this for? Are we really having a situation with, like, family Super Bowl parties where the kids are downstairs watching their own alternate? But on the other hand, I'm like, who cares? In terms of, like, our telecommunications companies, our, like, entertainment conglomerates, isn't this not a nice way to spend their money?
Yeah.
Out of all the ways, like, they could be wasting money on horrific AI or on, like, suppressing unions or, like, 100 other things. But they're using it to do a stupid, silly like, having Tom Kenny and Bill Futterwacken, or whatever his last name is, doing stupid VTuber nonsense.
No,
you want to laugh?
It was fun. I loved it.
So once the Chiefs got into the red zone in overtime, the inevitable is, we knew, again, the inevitable, unless he pulled a Russell Wilson, which the difference between Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson is Patrick Mahomes wouldn't pull a Russell Wilson. I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if I listened to the Nickelodeon cast for the very end of this game? And so I close out of my Hulu tab, and then I go, Carter, don't be an idiot. Come on, this is important. So, because, like, a dynasty is about to get made. So I click, and I didn't realize how, like, behind my feed was, because by the time I clicked back in, the confetti was falling, and I'm like, oh, I guess the Super Bowl's over. Okay. Oh, yeah, I guess we should talk about that. In terms of this is the first time the post-Chiefs-Bills overtime rules have been used.
Yes. That was... And the 49ers fans and players are complaining that they didn't understand
Always an excuse. Yeah. Always an excuse.
But no, I liked it. I liked the you go and then the teams you can get a comeuppance. Like, I think their biggest downfall was electing to go first.
I'm torn on that. I mean, I just feel like you should have known you had to score a touchdown. Like, even if you get the ball first, you have to treat it like 4-down territory.
Oh, yeah.
But that's just my general stance on the matter.
You definitely need to treat it like you are going... you need to get, like, that touchdown. Mm-hmm. But I'd rather be the second team for it so you can at least know what you have to meet or beat.
Right.
It's not a secret. Like, the 49ers, when they're ending with a field goal... They're obviously not paying attention to that they're playing against Patrick Mahomes, who always finds a way to win. But it's like, you set the bar, and you're putting a lot of faith in your defense, as opposed to putting your faith in defense at first, and then your offense, especially with the amount of star talent on both teams. And it's just like, all right, we got to find a way to win.
Right. Also,
we got to meet it or beat it.
I will say I don't really mind the logic. I don't mind the argument the Chiefs players made of, like, oh, well, it should just be a full quarter. But at the same time, Andy Reid was preparing for that scenario even though he didn't have to. Because they were running the clock down. Even if you got the ball back, you had, like, 10 seconds left.
They killed so much time.
Right. Like, even if it was, like, overtime is just a full quarter of play... They still crushed it.
Yeah. No, Chiefs would have been able to get off maybe 1 to 2 plays.
Right.
If they got lucky with timing and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Shall we switch over to our other discourse for
that?
night?
I'd just like to give shout out to where is he? Yeah, Jauan Jennings for being the second player to both throw a touchdown pass and receive a touchdown in the Super Bowl after Nick Foles.
Oh, really? I thought it was Randall L. from the Steelers.
Nick Foles is the only other Super Bowl era player to do that, which is awesome.
Which I do love. Salty Boston sports guy Bill Simmons always talks about, like, the Philly special is stupid because they didn't need to do a special play. They were scoring every other play anyway.
Yeah, but
why did they need a special play? Yeah, exactly. It's the psychological games.
Yeah.
The problem when people played against the Patriots in all those Super Bowls is they psych themselves out. The Seahawks talked themselves into throwing the ball. The Falcons somehow didn't realize they should just run the ball every play. Yeah, no. The Rams pooped. Jared Goff pooped his pants. The Eagles were the one team who was like, we're not afraid. F you.
They're the only team that just went. Belichick's figured out our design. Let's keep doing it. It's like, no, let's throw a monkey wrench into this. Also,
right.
Shout out to Marquez Valdes-Scantling for missing some very crucial catches over the year. But he pulled in a nice catch for the first lead the Chiefs had in the game. And then a huge downer for Dre Greenlaw for hurting himself for celebrating on the sideline.
That was truly mortifying. And that's the moment I just it just felt like some kind of cosmic force. Because the minute that happened, I'm just like, man, they're in trouble here. I don't know. It ended up, as whingy as we were about the Super Bowl going in, it ended up being fun.
Yeah.
Also, I'm just just saw a headline. Tiger Woods withdraws from round 2 of Genesis due to illness. And I'm like, motherfucker, you just were hanging out with Josh Allen.
Josh will be fine.
Is this just our lives? I know.
All right.
Yeah, but I just can't risk that. All right, anyway. So what else are we talking about today?
So we're going to go through each team.
Okay.
Division by division. And we're going to name one player, coach, whoever that I would say we can leave it open, not open-ended to if they're going to be a huge player this season, or if they were a huge player this season, somebody be a lookout for next season, things like that.
Okay.
We'll try and keep it real short. All right, so which division do you want to start with?
Well, ESPN has the American Football Conference East first, so shall we start with the AFC East?
We shall. Faux shizzle.
Okay. So, based on record, the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to go with Khalil Shakir for them. In the absence of... One of the big struggles for the Bills over the last few years has been finding a replacement to Cole Beasley. I hate that I have to say that, but we really haven't been able to find a consistent, reliable number 2 wide receiver. And while Khalil still has a ways to go before we are sure about that, he was utterly impressive this year. A very high catch-to-targets rate, 45 targets, 39 catches, 15 yards per catch, and really came on at the end of the year. Most people will remember his incredible touchdown against the Steelers, where he somehow was able to maintain his balance and score, and the incredible play against the Chiefs, where he was able to toe drag through the end zone. He feels like he's earned his place as one of the 3 receivers going in, regardless of what they do in the draft.
I'm going to say Dalton Kincaid. I like the cut of his jib, and yes. I'm going for a future aspect. I like the potential that he brings to that team, and he can be a key character for Josh Allen's future.
I completely agree. Next up, the Miami Dolphins. This is an easy one for me.
Tyreek Hill? Because that's mine.
Son of a bitch. I was going to say I was going to say Raheem Mostert, if you can believe that. Raheem Mostert is a guy who I've always had hovering around fantasy teams, who has always vexed me because when he's in, he's great, but he's always hurt, so he's never in. This was his healthiest year, where he played 15 games. The former track star was simply electric in this runaround offense, scoring 18 rushing touchdowns and leading the league. And you hope that this is a sign that the next couple years of his career, however long it may be healthy. But it is kind of heartbreaking in a way, because you just think, man, this guy has had this in him the whole time.
Yeah. No, Tyreek Hill, the cheetah, the most insane person, like, on the field at any given second. What more do you need to say? Had a great season last season. If he stays healthy, you'll have another great season, and so forth.
Well, hold on. I would be remiss, because I didn't see Devon Chase's stats. I assumed he had like 200 yards because he was hurt all the time. Nope. He had 800 yards on 100 carries. That's fucking nuts.
Yep.
That's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. Carry
on. No, that was pretty much it. I feel like Tyreek Hill is one of those people that speak for themselves.
Right. New York Jets.
It's all about the Jets, baby.
Let's hear it for the Jets. God, they really do have two sports teams in New York City with just 4 letters. Okay. Mine is Breece Hall. Coming off an ACL tear, he was incredibly consistent in a very unfortunate offensive situation. Despite not having a lot of advantages on that end, he still was able to run for 994 yards, 5 touchdowns, and was both a threat in the passing and the running game. Usually you want running backs the year after the year of the injury, and he already looks so explosive, so athletic. Yeah. I'm very excited to see what he has with another year of rehab and another year of getting his knee back under him.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Sauce Gardner.
Yes,
a little bit of a favorite of mine because his name is Sauce, and I like that. But incredible talent, still very young in his career, developing incredibly well. And I think, like, he got his rookie season out of the way. He got his following season, like, his, like, first season as a veteran returning out of the way. And now he's in that, like, third season where technically he can be starting to possibly workshop options, but he's like a first-round pick, like a first-round corner pick, so odds are they're going to extend him to his 5th if they haven't already decided that. But this could be like a career-establishing year for him.
Yes, he's avoided the sophomore slump and is continuing to impress. The New England Patriots. Give me a minute.
Whoever they draft to be their quarterback of the future.
Drake May or Jalen Daniels, probably. I don't know. I'm kind of warming up to Jalen Daniels, but I am very concerned, as someone pointed out. He has like 3 plays every game where he looks like a Looney Tunes character getting hit with a cartoon mallet.
Great description.
But, yeah, no. There is actually, look, J.C. Jackson, there's a couple defensive guys. Like, their defense was good this year. And I'd be remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge that the defense... You know what, who I'm going to say here? Bill Belichick. Because in spite of having handed a turd sandwich of a roster, partially his fault, he was able to rally and make a really good defense, and at least a competitive team. They weren't out of a lot of games. They just lost them because their offense was bad.
Yeah. Belichick was a defense guy anyway. All right. Yeah. Next is the AFC West, correct? Or do we want to jump over to the NFC?
Let's do the NFC East. All right. East. The Dallas Cowboys. God, I actually forgot they won the division. That's goddamn Eagles. All right. So for the Dallas Yeehaws, I'm going to say... You know what? I'm not gonna be silly. I'm just gonna say CeeDee Lamb. You know what? At the end of the day, for all the hype that for all the hype that our friend Tyreek Hill got, CeeDee Lamb was only a couple yards short of his and had 12 touchdowns.
Yeah.
A utterly impressive year from a guy who I feel like has been great, but like we've been waiting for him to take the sort of crown, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's always fighting at the end. Honestly, Brandon Aubrey.
I knew you were gonna. That's why I didn't pick it, because I was like, I can't take the kicker from this kid. I can't, in good faith, do that.
As much as it pains me, he was damn good.
I do think I texted you during a game. Jesus Christ, does this guy just not miss kicks?
No, he pretty much didn't until he was force-fed humble pie from Justin Tucker at the Pro Bowl. When
Hilarious.
Justin Tucker won at kick-tack-toe.
The Philadelphia Eagles. You know what? I'm going to do a double header here because we are reaching a weird transition period for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I just want to salute off Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce. We don't know what the future holds for these two, but at the end of the day, despite some of the lows, and by God, they were a lot of lows this year, these two have been the pioneers, the sort of stalwart leaders of a pretty successful generation of Eagles football, and I will salute them no matter where that sunset takes them.
I guess kind of going on the inverse of that, I'm going to give a shout out to Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter for kind of being the fresh side of that. Two guys that have clearly shown talent over the last season/2 seasons, and the accountability that the Eagles hold. If you notice with Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce, they always have great accountability. And even Jordan Davis was like, instead of blaming other players, other coaches, he was just like, you know what, I was kind of cooked the second half of the season. But if you're looking at some of the games he's played, when it's like in that era when he's talking about how he's cooked, he chased down Josh Allen during that time. He
actually kind of cost us the game.
Yeah, they took 3 people in some major games and moments to hold him back. So I'm hoping with those two and Fangio and kind of the older crowd leaving, or not leaving, but getting more into an advisory role, I guess is the best way to describe it. We can turn a new leaf and have this initiation of a new core 4.
Beautiful. The New York Football Giants.
Tommy DeVito.
Well, that's the obvious one, but I'm gonna pick a fun one. I'm gonna pick Darius Slayton. It has been a very bad decade for. It's been a very bad couple of years for Giants wide receivers. But this guy, who they've been trying to get rid of, trade, bench, cut, whatever, for 2 years now. Like, they genuinely do not want him, and he doesn't really want to be there, has inexplicably led the team in receiving yards and touchdowns. And if that's not kind of a victory in itself, I don't know what is.
Yeah. It really is.
The Washington Football Commanders.
God, who do I want to...
Really, this is why we need to write things down before we jump in, you know?
We thought of this topic like 30 seconds beforehand, so it's kind of fresh.
And I agreed because it was a really good topic. Okay, I actually have a couple I can pick here. I'm going to go with... Okay, I know what I'm going to do. All
right, hit me with what you're going to do while I try and figure out. I know
Jacoby Brissett. You got paid an extreme amount of money to just chill for 90% of the year, play incredibly well the 5 times you got to play, and make everyone mad at the Commanders for wasting a starter-level quarterback. If that's not a nice way to spend your year and basically get an extra year of your career because you didn't get hit that much, I don't know what is. Meanwhile, Sam Howell threw 21 touchdowns and 21 picks. God, I love the stupid same amount of touchdowns, same amount of pick stats.
Yeah.
It's almost better than Jameis Winston's 30 for 30.
Yeah. I'm going to pick... This might be a little bit of a weird one. I'm picking Dan Quinn, their new head coach.
I mean, look, again, there's only 32 of these jobs, and if you get one, get your roses.
Yeah, the last team he was the head coach for, was the Falcons 2015 to 2020. And then he spent some time in Dallas as the D coordinator. And I feel like this is going to just be interesting to see what happens. It looks like, based off of his history, it seemed like he kind of got thrown in too much too fast a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
And like you see him jump up like a decent amount, and then he declines a little bit, and then he jumps up a decent amount, declines for a year or two. Like, he went from like a defensive line coach for teams to assistant head coach as well as that, but then he went to Florida for a season for like a coordinator, and then he jumped up as a coordinator, then jumped up as a head coach, went down again, jumped up as a head coach. So I'm curious to see what he will bring to the table of the Commanders.
I like it. All right. Shall we move to the Wests?
Yeah.
All right. The Kansas City Chiefs. Trent McDuffie. Easy one. You know, like, what's wild? He did not have a single interception. He did not get a single interception. And yet, you watch him every single game. This is the best example of box office versus tape. Because when you watch the tape, you're like, oh, this guy's a top 5 cornerback. Mm-hmm. Truly, one of the most consequential decisions of this era of football might be the Chiefs trading up to get Trent McDuffie over 3 or 4 teams, including the Bills, who absolutely wanted a cornerback.
Yeah.
Because now they have a lockdown number 1 cornerback who just fundamentally changes how the other team plays defense. You watch the highlights of him juking and slipping by, or like taking on Trent Williams, one of the best tackles in the league, and you know how much impact he has on the game.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna kind of follow your theme a little bit, but I'm gonna pick a different person for like kind of an unsung hero award ish. Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
Dude played in 2 seasons and has 2 rings. Like, and
yeah, I mean,
obviously
you can't put a price on that.
Obviously, there's the factor of like, oh, he was on the Kansas City Chiefs, one of the best teams ever. Like, blah blah blah, new dynasty, blah blah blah, and you can say that for people that are just like technically Chad Henne won a Super Bowl ring with them as their backup. Same with like Blaine Gabbert, but they haven't really. I mean, actually, well, Henne did more than Gabbert, but that's beside the point. But Pacheco showed up and has helped the team, distinctly helped the team every single game. Or almost every single game.
The Las Vegas Raiders.
Do you almost pull out really an Oakland Raiders?
Yeah. Also, Sephiroth and Meebo sold out. Damn it. Yeah. Max Crosby, kind of a boring one, but in this weird transition period for the Raiders where all of this like genuinely great talent they have or brought in that has been there for a while and have gutted it out during some dark years is like kind of recent crossroads where it's like they really should start trading some of these guys so they can rebuild. But like if you have this much talent, you kind of want to keep competing. Mm-hmm. He's kind of the bedrock of that. He's like been him and Hunter Renfrow have kind of been the rocks who have kept this thing together.
Yeah, I'm picking another head coach, Antonio Pierce. The guy
that's a fun pick.
Yeah, who was the former interim coach when about halfway through the season everyone just got fired, pretty much across the board. And he kind of stepped up in the interim spot, and you've got something going for you with a coach, if the fact of you have some of your top stars saying, "We'll leave. We'll do it, man."
Right.
If he doesn't get this head coach gig, you
It
know
is
he's
why-
got something going for him in the locker room.
Oh, yeah. I know historically it doesn't really work out for interim coaches becoming head coaches, but if it's going to happen once, can it just work out for him? Because it's such a nice story. Like, this is the one time it would be really nice if it all pans out.
Yeah, it's
the
fun.
the Broncos country, let's ride. I'm going to do a coach here. Sean Payton. I've listened to a couple different podcasts, and one podcast in particular I listened to leaned into this idea of, like, at the end of the day, the Denver Broncos were a grift to get all of the Walmart company's money. Because the previous owners of the Broncos wanted to sell the team, and to make the team more appealing, they wanted Aaron Rodgers. So they bring in Nathaniel Hackett, who gets paid a lot of money, and then even though he doesn't deliver Aaron Rodgers. So then they panic and trade for Russell Wilson, who gets a huge, big honking contract to kind of underperform, and everyone to realize, oh, wait, maybe Richard Sherman was the good guy in that story. And then to try and fix that, they bring in Sean Payton, who's kind of like, I don't know, I was kind of waiting for that Chargers to open. That kind of seemed more my speed. And they're like, we will give you an amount of money no coach should get. Cool. So at the end of the day, everyone, even though this team isn't very good, everyone kind of wins. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't about winning football games. It was about taking the billions of dollars the Walmart company has and just scooping that up into our pockets. And Sean Payton is the last one to get that juicy, juicy dollar.
Yeah.
And I respect that as a ghoulish sociopath about money.
I'm going to say, you mentioned him in your spiel, not as a good guy. I'm saying Russell Wilson.
He wasn't terrible this year.
He wasn't terrible. But it appears that it's going to be the end of the Russell Wilson's Broncos country let's ride era.
Right. I can concede that he hasn't been the best quarterback there, but also that he kind of got done dirty.
He got done a little dirty. They had
two things can be
solid
true.
Competition this year. Like they kind of showed up.
They were competitive,
but I don't think he's going to be back if it hasn't been already announced.
One of the conversations I'm most looking forward to this offseason is where he's going to go. Someone pitched the Steelers.
That would be interesting.
I could talk myself into him having like an all-time great redemption story there.
Yeah. What was that?
The Falcons, maybe?
Steelers country, let's go. Steel City, let's go.
Get the rivets ready.
Get the rivets ready. That would be a fun one.
Or like something with a furnace. Like, I like the idea of fire. It feels like a fire thing, you know?
Yeah.
The Los Angeles Chargers. Let's see. God, they really had a bad year. Jesus Christ. I truly thought I was surprised how many wins the Raiders got, and the Raiders and Broncos got. I'm actually kind of shocked how few wins the Chargers got.
Yeah.
You know what? Keenan Allen, much like Mike Evans, a role model of consistency and hard work in this league. He, despite not being one of the sexier wide receivers, he's always a 1,000-yard machine, even though he gets hurt sometimes. So you know what? Good for you for getting it out, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Eckler, kind of on the upper side, or not really. I feel like might be past his prime a little bit, but known for getting a crazy amount of yards over the years. I like it.
Khalil Mack had 17 sacks. Jesus. That guy.
Oh, we should have said him.
Well, that guy, I don't know. That feels like a guy, quote-unquote, beating the washed accusations only for it to be a freak anomaly. All right. The NFC West, the San Francisco 49ers. Are you going to pick the kicker? Because I'm going to pick the kicker if you don't.
I'm not picking the kicker.
I want to say Brandon Ayuk. That's a sensible option. Yeah. But I can't. If you break a record in the Super Bowl, I feel like by law I have to give it to you. Jake Moody set a record for longest field goal in Super Bowl only to get it stolen from him. So you know what? You get it, my guy. Congratulations.
Fair enough. Jake Moody, or when was he drafted? Isn't he like? No, he's not. He wasn't a rookie kicker. this season.
No, he's been around for a while.
49ers.
I don't remember.
Or not the 49ers. Who's the other guys? Chiefs kicker was a rookie.
Right. Which makes that even ballsier.
Yeah, super ballsy. But I gotta go with Christian McCaffrey. Under the same guard as Tyreek
Simple and sensible pick.
Insanely good. Their season would not be the season that they had without him.
Yes. The Los Angeles Rams. Now it's time to get dumb because there's so many obvious no-brainer picks here. So many ones where it's like the feel-good stories of this team. But if the story of this team is being a feel-good team, how can I not pick Carson fucking Wentz? At the end of the day, a man who we made memes out of, the man who has been dunked on, pooped on, peed on, a little bit of puked on, thrown under a bus, set on fire, and shot at multiple times. Isn't even on a team for 90% of this season. Comes in for one somewhat meaningless but kind of meaningful game against other backups against the Super Bowl losing San Francisco 49ers. And kind of balls out. You can't say, look, the Carson Wentz story isn't how we wanted it to turn out. Like, I think we all wanted him to win his own Super Bowl, at least for a minute. And it is kind of a bummer that it isn't going to work out for him. Because I, too, would probably have problems if I balled out for one season, tore my knee, and then watched my backup win a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, you know what? For just this one time, for just this one moment, he got to show that he can compete. And you know what? I'll give him that. I'll give him a rose for that.
I was gonna pick him. He was one of my two picks that I was gonna choose.
That's why I picked it first. That's why I went first, motherfucker.
I'm going with Puka Nacua.
Yeah, that's the sensible pick.
Another sensible pick. Another person that makes sense. I think this kid is gonna be on the forefront of wide receiving for the next few years. Mm-hmm. And depending on Cooper Kupp, depending on Matt Stafford and Tutu Atwell, this kid's either going to be, I think he's at least going to be wide receiver 2 minimum for at least until Cooper Kupp is, like, he and Cooper Kupp are on the same team.
Right. The Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to go with a weird one here. I want to go with Jackson Smith, or I could go with Devon Witherspoon because he actually was good this year. But I'm going with Bobby Wagner because at the end of the day, I watched a lot of Seahawks, and a lot of like prominent Seahawks fans are in sort of like the mainstream football discourse, and they all agree Bobby Wagner kind of sucked this year, and yet he still almost had 200 tackles. Yeah. And I will reward him for being that embodiment of stats don't inherently equal performance. You can look at Derek Carr for that as well. So I respect the grift, and I respect that he got to go back to his original team and put up a bunch of numbers.
Unsung hero tight end, Nick Fant, or Noah Fant.
Ooh, fun one.
Yeah.
He really turned on at the end of the year.
Him and like Tyler Higbee are in this weird class where when you're thinking of the best tight ends in the league, you don't think of them. Far from it. But damn, do they just like, when they show up big.
Agreed. The Arizona Cardinals. Now, I guess the question is, where do we put the Pastronaut?
Ooh, he ended the season on, I guess because it's based off of the end of the season, he ended on the Vikings, so that's where he would be.
Okay. In that case, I am going to go with James Conner. You know,
Great
James
choice.
Conner is a inspirational story. He's like a really good role model. And even though he'll never have the sexiest stats and he'll always kind of be considered an afterthought, at the end of the day, the man grinds, he gets 1,000 yards, he averages 5 yards a carry. Mm-hmm. And like one of the reasons why I'm excited for the future of the Cardinals is because they simultaneously have like air raid potential, but also can grind it out when it's necessary.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go... This might seem a little controversial for me. I'm going with Jonathan Gannon. Because I am still laughing at the before-the-season speech of him just monotonely going, "Do we have any killers in the room? How do you guys get here? Do you get a ride? Do you drive? Do you take a bus?" That whole speech had made me giggle every week this season, and it still continues to. So that's why he's getting my pick.
He did a decent job.
Yep.
You know, who can say what inspires the youth of America?
Yeah.
All right. On to the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens. Easy one for me.
So,
Kyle Hamilton.
not who I was thinking.
You thought I was going to say Lamar and take my victory lap?
Yep, I thought you were going to take a victory lap.
Yeah, but that's obvious. He won the MVP, and also it's not as fun after they lose. But Kyle Hamilton has been one of my favorite players since he came out of the draft. He is a physical freak. He is the embodiment of the modern safety and how defenses more and more are being built around these freakish, lengthy guys who can go from sideline to sideline and rain absolute terror on the blitz or in pass coverage. The future is here, and his name is Kyle Hamilton.
I'm going to go with Zay Flowers.
Yeah.
If there's somebody that's going to be competing with Puka their entire, like, I feel like him and Puka are going to be going one for one their entire, like, a good portion of their careers, where they're going to be the most notable rookies of the previous draft, or wide receivers of the previous draft, and then I feel like those two are going to be, there's going to be a secret rivalry between those two, like behind closed doors, where they just want to one-up each other.
Right. The Cleveland Browns.
I call dibs on Joe Flacco.
Fine. I wasn't thinking that anyway. The easy pick would be Myles Garrett. We probably should cover the award season stuff. We'll probably do that right after this to wrap up. But Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is another guy. Weirdly, I just love sort of rangy linebacker safety hybrids from Notre Dame, apparently. Another guy who I desperately wanted the Bills to get. Another guy who's just got incredible athleticism, led the team in tackles. And while Myles Garrett is the face of the team, he is like the spine. He's the muscle. Like, if you somehow manage to survive Myles Garrett, you're getting a load of Owusu, my friend.
Mm-hmm. I'm sticking with Joe Flacco. Obviously, I'm not gonna change it. What am I, a weirdo?
Comeback player of the year, baby.
Yeah, comeback player of the year.
We'll talk about that in a minute. That's fucking hilarious.
He's got this old wizard vibes. He's Joe Flacco.
A one-man PR campaign.
Yeah, if you like him holding the team together, kind of, it doesn't completely cover how much of a disappointment What's-His-Face has been, but it shows, like, it gives people to keep the Browns talking. Yeah.
The Pittsburgh Steelers. George Pickens, easy one.
Choice.
Like, you know, if you listen to the discourse around the offense this year, you think he would have had like 500 yards. He still had 1,000 yards, 18 per catch. In terms of, like, he's kind of the role model wide receiver in terms of not only is he a physical freak, he's tall, he's fast, he's leapy, but also he's a little bit crazy. And I think Pittsburgh is long due for a little bit of crazy to add a spark of life to this offense.
Fair. I'm gonna pick Russell Wilson, I guess. No, pick Russell
right.
Wilson.
We gotta start manifesting this, because I actually think that would be.
No, I would say my pick would be Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Nice call.
Solid safety. I feel like his name gets thrown around in that don't sleep on player like level a lot. So he's my pick.
Right. The Cincinnati Bengals. I want to say Bagent because he did keep this team afloat in spite of it all. But Trey Hendrickson, you know, when the face of your franchise goes down, you need to turn to unlikely heroes. And this guy who has quietly been, for the last couple years, been a reliable defensive force for the Bengals since he came over from New Orleans. He had the famous play against the Ravens in the playoffs where he returned the punt, like a volleyball fumble for a touchdown. 17.5 sacks this year, tied for second. You don't hear him complaining about not getting Defensive Player of the Year. A role model, sort of, like, kind of just the embodiment of a great, sort of underappreciated defensive lineman. Mm-hmm. Third round, big guy, few words, big actions.
Yeah. I'm going to pick Mike Brown, the owner. Ooh. Because if he manages to he kept Burrow despite Burrow being hurt, but he's got a lot of talent that has contracts running up. Jamar Chase, Higgins, even oh gosh, I haven't talked about the Bengals in so long. I keep forgetting people's names. Boyd.
Mixon.
There's so many good names that he's gonna have to work some magic in order to keep some people.
Right. And a famous poverty franchise that's stingy with money somehow built an incredible talent pool.
Mm-hmm. NFC North.
Yes. First up, the Detroit Lions. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Sam Laporta, who shattered records as a rookie tight end, breaking the catching record, and I believe breaking the touchdown record.
Yes, he did.
Or
he at least tied it.
Yes. In a really, really good rookie. A lot of people questioned their approach to the draft, but at the end of the day, with Jack Campbell second in tackle, Jahmyr Gibbs being the Reggie Bush-esque spark of explosiveness they needed, and Sam Laporta crushing it. On top of even last year's pick, Jameson Williams, showing up at the very end of the year to make some big plays. Mm-hmm. If this thing, like, there's a lot of talk about the future of the Lions, especially when Ben Johnson inevitably leaves at some point. But if they continue to draft this well, it will be a constant refreshing of talent.
Hey, he said he wanted to stay, like, after this last season, so that says something.
Maybe he just likes being a coordinator.
Yeah. My pick, I think, I do like Sun God Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Right.
But I'm going to go with Aiden Hutchinson. When you're talking about defensive lines, especially in the NFC, Aiden Hutchinson, like, the Detroit's line will be mentioned typically, but Aiden Hutchinson gets mentioned by name.
Right. At the end of the day, I wasn't sure about him coming out of the draft more because of his ceiling, but like it was the right pick for the right city, and it is working out.
Mm-hmm.
The Green Bay Football Packers.
Yeah, the good old cheeseheads. Do you want a Jordan Love, or should I have Jordan Love?
No, you can have Jordan Love. You know what? Here's what I'll do. I'll pick Matt LaFleur because he finally has control of this team over the cloud of misery that was Aaron Rodgers. And you're like, oh, this is why people wanted him as a coach, because he is a fun, creative mind who can rally a bunch of youth, overcome some early season struggles, and show up in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that plus Jordan Love, who just all of a sudden was like, he flipped the talent switch. I said it last year, where it was like when the Eagles played and it was like Aaron Rodgers was in, I wasn't worried. And then Jordan Love got put in, and that's when I got nervous in that game. And the kid showed off his talent in 5s and 10s this season. And they have a very young team that had very good success. First number 7 seed to beat a 2 seed. Kind of insane.
Yes. Actual history in the making. The Minnesota Vikings. Shall you take the Pastronaut?
No, you can have the Pastronaut.
Look, at the end of the day, it ended a little sloppy, but if the NFL season is carried by individual stories, there was very few stories as fun as Joshua Dobbs, a man who seemingly got left holding the bag for an Arizona Cardinals team that wasn't very good, used his athleticism, his smarts, and a little bit of charm to get a few shocking performances and a few shocking wins, and then carried that energy over to the Minnesota Vikings until one game where he threw 4 interceptions and got benched. But man, for that brief 15 minutes,
they were looking like gold.
Ain't nothing more famous.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go with Jordan Addison.
Nice. I really liked him. I kind of wish he was a Bill.
He had a pretty good season, and he's one of those people that he got outshined by, oh God, why did I forget his name? Justin Jefferson. Like, he would get outshined by Justin Jefferson because Justin Jefferson's Justin Jefferson. But first season with the Vikings, because it's his first season at all, had 70 receptions for 911 yards. So he almost broke that 1,000 first season. And he got 10 touchdowns. Can't sleep on that.
The Chicago Bears. I'm going to go with a weird one, Montez Sweat. So he got traded from Washington to Chicago halfway through the year. And on one hand, it was kind of it felt very sweaty. It felt like a bunch of people in the Bears organization trying to save their jobs by getting a little talent in. But at the end of the day, when you're the Chicago Bears and you've kind of been at the bottom rung of the league for so long, you just need talent. And at the end of the day, the talent showed up. Yeah. Since getting traded, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5 sacks of his 12.5 with the Bears. And at the end of the day, that is kind of what, like, again, you need talent, bring in talent, and now you have a reliable defensive lineman, a premium position for a few years. And regardless of what they end up doing with that first overall pick, at least you have that reassurance of like, all right, well, we got one dog on this team.
Yeah. Speaking of having one dog on the team, I'm going to go with whoever they choose to be the number 1 seed for the next draft, because that's a huge pick. They're at this, in my opinion, weird stage where their talent is kind of all over the place, and they're not quite in a rebuilding sense, but they're not quite in a like just enhancement talent sense. So I think they're gonna pick who they believe to be their next star at a skill position is. I don't want to guarantee it's going to be a quarterback because I think they're pretty sold on Justin Fields.
But God knows what they're going to do.
I think they're going to use that pick for a skill position.
Right, because Marvin Harrison Jr. could be the pick, and he'll be Rookie of the Year because he'll score like 12 touchdowns. But, all right, last 2 divisions. The AFC South. Our baby boys, our Sun Kings, our Lemon Dewdrops, our Field of Grain, the Houston Football Texans.
Here's the problem with this. We're ending on the NFC South, and who's going to bum us?
I didn't fucking think of that.
Yeah, I didn't think about that either. Should have flipped it around. Oh, well.
We could just do the NFC South first.
Yeah, let's do the NFC South first. Yeah.
All right. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Okay, I have a simple one for this one. I am going to go with Rachaad White. The
guy that Joe tried to trade all season long.
Yes, and I should have gotten him, but instead I let Kenny Mack get him, and it kind of fucked me over. Like, I wasn't going to win anyway, but I could have at least made my money back. Yeah, the Buccaneers have struggled with running the ball for years, even during the Tom Brady era. This guy had over 800 rushing yards, 500 passing yards, and was consistently reliable as just like an explosive playmaker that the team needed, and kind of embodies sort of the scrappy vibes that the team had. That even though you don't think all of this should work out, watch as it does.
I'm going to say the frat club president of Theta Beta Beta, Baker Mayfield.
Woo!
Like, for a guy who's traveled around teams and, like, Callum travels around to different schools, he's had quite a various career of locations, and this is one of those seasons where, say what you will about the rest of the team that he was working with, he did all right. He did pretty damn good.
Correct. The New Orleans Saints. Already. Chris Olave, only because I always will give roses to wide receivers who can get 1,000 yards despite a truly toxic offensive system and a quarterback who the team actively hates. Zach Wilson stole all the oxygen in the room. Like, I feel like people forget that Derek Carr was actively hated by his team. Someone tried to start a fight with him on the sidelines in a helmet. And yeah, I wanted to believe in Derek Carr. That guy is a fraud. He is a stats merchant. He is an embodiment of watching the film versus box score. Because you look at the numbers, they're not that bad. And I saw enough of those games to know, no, it actually was horrific.
I'm going to go... Oh, God, I don't know who I want to go. You know what? Taysom Hill for the concept of playing both tight end and quarterback. I got nothing.
It's so stupid they let you do that in fantasy.
It's so stupid.
Truly, if he would have been the greatest player to ever live in the 1950s. He would have been he would have replaced Otto Graham as the 1940s darling.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, can you believe a man can do all of this on a football field?
Yeah, he's a football player. And
yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But you know what? We made the right choice about talking about the NFC South first.
This would have been such a bummer to end on.
Yeah.
Falcons, Jesse Bates, easy. I desperately wanted him for the Bills. He is a safety. He led the team in both tackles and interceptions. Like, I don't know what the process is for this team building. Now that they finally switched coaches, they have a little clearer direction. But the bare minimum, they have a bunch of dogs on offense and one stone-cold dog on defense. I love that almost all of my picks defensively have been safeties.
Yeah. Big safety guy. I'm going with Raheem Morris, their new head coach.
Yes.
Who spent a little bit of time as a defensive coordinator there in 2020 and a bunch of other positions before that. But he just came off of a stint with the Rams, and he's not Art. He's not Art Smith.
Yep.
So I'm
the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, hopeful and curious to see how he goes. Carolina Panthers.
So per Kenny Mack for not Minecrafting himself.
It's a great
Chuba Hubbard I hope he loves this. Chuba Hubbard, because he was able to jump Miles Sanders in order and almost get 1,000 yards. And when things are going wrong, to achieve personally is a gift.
And his name sounds cool.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna go with Bryce Young, number one pick overall.
Got handed a turd sandwich and didn't die.
Yeah, he made out the season relatively injury-free, despite all the crap that he was handed on a platter.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. The AFC South. Now we're ending on a hot note. A lot hotter of a note.
Woo, 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 woo,
All right.
woo.
What team you want first?
Texans. I'm going to go Tank Dell.
Great choice.
Even though he was hurt for a huge chunk of the year, he is kind of the poster child for this new era of football where truly anyone can be in the NFL. There's no size limit anymore. If you're little and fast, you can make it work. If you're little and athletic, you can make it work. If you're big and slow, you can make it work. If you're big and you're tough, you can make it work. I'm very tired.
Yeah.
I was on a train most of the day. But yeah, Tank Dell was kind of emblematic of sort of the youthful scrappiness this team had to get to the playoffs. And I didn't want to pick C.J. Stroud because that was too obvious.
Because I'm going to pick him, even though it's too obvious.
Right. Also, I feel like I have to give you at least a few of those as a gentleman's courtesy, considering I picked go first.
Yeah. It's obviously going to be C.J. Listen to this entire season if you don't want to hear us talk about C.J.
Right.
We've hyped him up all season long. Tank Dell was handpicked by C.J. Stroud to join the team. And I'm so excited to see where this Texans team goes.
I couldn't agree more. The Jacksonville Jaguars.
Josh
Allen, the other one.
Yeah. Great.
In the year that was horribly disappointing in a number of respects, Josh Allen continues to be the one they got right. The 7th pick in the 2019 draft, he has been a defensive force. He had he hasn't broken 10 sacks since his rookie year. This year he went on an absolute heater with 17.5 sacks and an interception. Yeah. He continues to be the menace hiding among the Jaguars live around.
Jungle.
Palm tree? No, yeah, it's more like it's rainforest, right? So like regular trees. Well, I don't know. I'm not a animal scientist. You are.
Yeah, they're like jungles /
foliage.
Like, yeah, it depends on which jaguar.
Wait, did you pick yet?
No, I did not pick yet.
Well, go ahead.
Honestly, I'm going with Christian Kirk. He might be one of those don't sleep on players that are secretly good. They just don't get the recognition because of other players on their team.
Right. We can hold two thoughts in their head that they probably overpaid for him a little bit, but that he is kind of an underrated wide receiver in spite of that.
Oh, yeah. No, full agreed. They paid too much, but they're not losing their money, I guess.
Yeah, he's showing up. You know, it's like the Ed Oliver contract where it's like, yes, they gave him a lot of money, but at least he's stepping up and at least arguing that he deserves it. The Indianapolis Colts. Michael Pittman Jr., only because it's like, this was the year we've been waiting for him for a while. Like, the Colts keep insisting, no, this guy can be a number one. We promise. This guy can be a number one receiver. We promise. 100 catches, 1,100 yards, 53 first downs, and kind of just a reliable cog in this offensive machine. And if there's one story from the Colts this year is, in spite of losing Anthony Richardson so early, the offensive structure that has gotten brought in from the Philadelphia Eagles is so sound that they can win in spite of losing their star player.
Yeah, Shane Steichen really carried the team together. I'm going to go with Zach Moss.
Yes. Who's my other pick?
Back up to Jonathan Taylor. And when Taylor was out, Moss was on fire. He was arguably one of the most electric people on the field when he was listed as the first running back.
Right.
And I've seen he also broke some holds and some tackles that I was just like, whoa.
Right. Truly, if you want to, when it comes to outside of, the elite early drafted running backs, if you want to see what a system can do for talented guys, look at how Zach Moss was on the Bills versus how he was on the Colts and be like, yeah, there's a lot of guys with a lot of upside that just need the right system to flourish. The Tennessee Titans. DeAndre Hopkins, another boring one from us. But, a lot of people gave him a lot of flack for, taking the money over going to a winner. But at the end of the day, he still balled out. He led the team in receptions by a lot. He led the team in yards by a lot. He led the team in touchdowns by a cartoonish amount. And on an offense that didn't really have a lot going for it, they fed him and he ate.
Fair enough. You know what? Mine might be a little bit controversial. Mike Vrabel. I think
the fallen king.
Yeah. He coached since 2018 with the team. And after his first season, he either got first or second in the division. But this last season, I feel like he got fourth because they weren't building to be a new team. And did you see the insanity that was the division at the end of the season where Colts and Texans went from their clearly slumped teams to just sleeping giants, where they had to be I feel like the Titans were got the short end of the stick for the division because they had to lose the other guys twice, or twice to some of them, and not all games.
Right.
But,
and on top of that, he just got really caught holding the bag in a weird transitional period where he basically had to fight the owner and 2 different GMs over the direction of the franchise.
Yeah.
They shedded a lot of talent, and he kind of got screwed over. And the fact that they won 6 games is honestly kind of impressive.
Yeah.
Like, they won more than the Chargers. They won more than the Patriots. They won more than a lot of teams that I thought would have been better than them this year.
Yeah, and they at least have Derrick Henry holding down the fort, and then a couple other, like, D-Hop and you can't sleep on. Oh God, how do Okano? I can't pronounce his name.
Oh,
the one tight
yeah,
end.
Yes. Yeah, that guy rules, and it's a shame that it's damn near, like, that is very hard to say his
it's like
name.
why I don't like to text you about Juszczyk.
Yes.
The illiteracy catches up fast.
Nkonkwo is his last name.
Yep, would have never gotten that.
Or Nkonkwo.
Never would have gotten that. But yeah, I feel like Titans could be a sleeping giant for this upcoming season.
Right.
Depending
I
on-
mean, look, I dunked on Will Levis a lot. He actually looked very competent this year.
Yeah.
Or at least, like, showed you the things you want to see from a rookie tight end with physical upside.
Yeah, plus top 10 pick. So
Yes.
can't.
No, he was the 2nd round, remember?
No, this upcoming season they have a top.
Oh,
10 pick.
yes. Okay. I thought you were like Will Levis, and I'm like,
No,
that's some revisionist history
oh,
right
yeah,
there
no,
that I
he
won't
was-
stand for.
he was the 2nd rounder, and he unfortunately got caught with his pants down at the first night because everyone's like, "Oh, when's he gonna get picked?" And he was picked number like 2, second night or 1.
Anyway, as we wrap up, do we want to quickly talk about the award show winners?
Sure, hit us with them.
Yes. So the NFL awards this year, the 11th annual NFL honors. Oh, that's the wrong one. I don't know what. Okay, hold on. For some reason, it gave me the wrong year when I searched it up. So NFL Most Valuable Player, Lamar Jackson. We kind of knew, like, you know, and like the Bills fans have been annoying about it. And again, looking at his box stats betrays the film where he just truly, the best version of Lamar Jackson, truly just controlling the offensive side of the field. Kevin Stefanski, AP Coach of the Year. I don't like rewarding Browns, but at the end of the year, this man got handed so much feces and somehow spun it into a playoff berth. Assistant Coach of the Year, Jim Schwartz. Completely agree. It
Fair.
was a really impressive defense. Got the best out of that talent. AP Offensive Player of the Year, Chris McCaffrey. If we decided only
Makes
quarterbacks are allowed to win the MVP, then this makes sense.
Yeah.
Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett.
Makes sense.
Steelers fans are pissing and moaning, but at the end of the day, it is time. We can't let Myles Garrett go this long without a Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Rookie of the Year, C.J. Stroud. Offensive Rookie of the Year,
Obviously.
C.J. Stroud. Duh. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Will Anderson. This one was a little closer, but I kind of agree with it on the principle of...
Yeah, that one. If Jalen Carter kept the pace he started the first 5 weeks with the entire season, I would say he got robbed. But Will Anderson kept his pace the entire season.
Yes. And also, I just support it on the grounds of, like, look, one of the stories of the year is the youth movement leading the Texans out of the dark, so I'm cool with giving both of their rookies that. Walter Payton, Man of the Year. Cameron Hayward, cool.
That was an
AP
interesting
Player
one.
Comeback of the Year. The funniest part of all of this. Joseph Flacco.
Yep. Joey football
So
himself.
here's what happened. So DeMar Hamlin did end up getting the most first place votes. But because Joe Flacco got more second and third place votes, he ends up slipping by him.
Yep.
DeMar Hamlin, a man who had a heart attack on the field and almost died, got electoral colleged. Truly the funniest outcome for the Buffalo Bills in this sad, frustrating year.
It really is a Bills situation.
Yes. And, like, at the end of the day, look, I would prefer DeMar Hamlin prove himself on the field and not have to be defined by this. The NFL was weirdly ghoulish and unpleasant about this whole thing, especially considering he wasn't only dressed for like half of the games. And also, my God, I can't believe Sean McDermott shoved that man in front of a bus by making him run a fake punt directly into the defensive line.
Yeah.
I can't believe... Like, I get
Fed
it. They
to
only
the
had 10
wolves.
guys on the field, so you're like, let's run a fake play. Why is your solution to then run straight at the guys who are there?
I don't know.
Yes, and that is the awards. And to quickly rattle off, because I always find it interesting, the Hall of Fame class: Dwight Freeney, the Colts defensive lineman; Randy Granchiar, who played for the Broncos in the 70s; Devin Hester, who is my personal favorite of this bunch. I am so glad we are finally giving special team specialists their dues. Look, there are a few iconic moments in football, as iconic as all of those bulbs going off at the Colts Bears Super Bowl as it's pouring rain, and Devin Hester takes the first kick back for a touchdown. Truly a man of an era, because special teams doesn't really happen anymore. Andre Johnson, who was a model of consistency, and on one hand, I'm like, does he deserve it? He didn't really have a lot of playoff success, but I respect it on the grounds of guy produced stats. Stephen Douglas McNeil, nicknamed Mongo, defensive tackle, mostly for the Chicago Bears. Julius Peppers, another guy, model of consistency. And Patrick Willis, a guy who famously retired kind of early, despite being kind of one of the defensive faces of the league. I really like that Calvin Johnson and him, coming from the same draft class, and both retiring kind of early, kind of in their primes. Both were able to still get their roses, and the league still acknowledged, like, these guys were faces of the league for a while and truly were unstoppable. Anyone stand out from that class to you?
No, I feel like you summarized it all up. So I guess
I hope Steve Tasker gets in now, though, because Steve Tasker is a Bills special teams guy who is like a tackling freak. And if we're gonna start letting guys who are just on special teams in, I hope he gets his chance. But I digress.
Yeah. So I guess the only thing to do now is wrap this up. So before we hit the full outro for the last time this season, thank you guys for listening.
Yeah.
All season long. 20-something weeks that we still never figured out.
Yeah. It's... I do a lot of podcasts these days. It kind of fills the gaps of my time. I try to, I don't know. At the end of the day, when you don't have a lot, you got your voice. And knowing that some people get a little laugh out of this, knowing some people get something out of us pontificating and sermonizing, it's nice. It's nice to have an outlet, and it's nice to spend time with my friend.
Aw, thanks, buddy. It's nice to spend time with you. But I guess for the meantime... Kevin's Road to Mania is...
I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Up and coming, where I talk about wrestling. Your regularly scheduled CastPod episodes are still thrown out throughout as we can. And, yeah, Carter talks about theater. Carter Explains Broadway, possibly in the works.
Carter Explains Broadway. I've already written out a syllabus for the episodes, and I am really excited... because that is kind of my wheelhouse. If you want to laugh, Kevin, I had to go with my dad in the hospital. He's okay, everyone. He's just getting plasma treatment. It's kind of a part of his process. He asked me, so what did The Rock do? And I was like, well, thanks to my friend Kevin, I am now able to articulate why The Rock has fallen under the ire of wrestling fans worldwide.
Yeah. And then also... we will see you guys. We'll have a little bit of, I guess, the preseason of the next season. Kevin and Carter talk the draft coming back.
Yes, hell yeah. The draft is kind of one of my favorite periods of the year, even though I think it's democratic. Yeah. Especially in a year, firepower is through. I am so down for that.
We'll be talking about that, and then in our little hiatus after that, we will be... I think we'll be doing Kevin and maybe CastPod drinks beer. Huh?
Oh yes, I have plenty of ideas for that.
CastPod Summer of Beer coming up.
Yes,
after our draft talks. We're gonna focus on the regular episodes and other things, and Kevin's Road to Mania, and then we'll talk about the draft. But here's a little fun fact before we close out. This is the last episode, besides being the last episode of this season, this is the last episode of Kevin and Carter Talk Football that is exclusively on YouTube from this point out, all of our future episodes will also be on the Spotify.
Ah, finally. As someone who's been on Spotify for a while, I'm excited to spread my wings further.
Yep.
So, and someday I'll bully Sydney into putting all of our episodes on YouTube as well.
Yeah, this is, I think, the first episode, this is the last, like, full series that we are doing that has, like, a seasonality aspect that will not be put on the Spotify. Everything else from this point on is going to be Spotify.
Woo!
Yeah. So for the last time this season, on a YouTube exclusive, send us home, Carter.
Well, friends who have been with us throughout this journey, as the last roars of the mighty winter terrify the wildlife of the world, as the last few winter chills hit us, we go into the locker room one last time to clear things out. We see the jockstrap we meant to wash. We see our notes and our playbooks from various times in the year. We see little moments and feelings and vibes that remind us of all the fun we had this year. And it is bittersweet because only one team gets to hold up the Lombardi every year. And we reminisce on what could have been, what should have been, and what would have been if a couple bounces went our way. But as we leave the locker room and head out into the cold again, and head home to rest and hibernate a little bit, we notice a little hue of green in the grass, a little sparkle of green, and remember that spring is only so far away. The bloom, the rebirth. And with that rebirth comes hope and youth and dreams of what can be, not what has already happened. And with that, we get a spark of passion and motivation again, knowing that in just a few short months, we will be back here again with hopes and dreams of seeing that silver trophy in our hands next year. But until that time, we thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.